Patrick Payton,
I, Patrick Payton,
do solemnly
do
swear
solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the duties
that I will faithfully execute the duties
of the office of mayor
of the office of mayor
for the city of Midland,
of the city of Midland,
of the state of
of the
Texas,
state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws
the Constitution and laws
of the United
of
States
the United States
and of this state,
and of this state.
so help me God.
So help me God. You might want to sit down, Amy. All right, thanks. Somebody left a really nice gold cross pen up here. Oh, I already got a pen. Oh, do I need to sign that? Well, Jerry, I didn't trim any words from mine, but thank you so much. I was going to ask you guys to quit clapping because my grandson fell asleep, and so, anyways, he's down here on the second row. Well, bear with me for just a minute. I don't know how you people made it without emotion. I'm a highly emotional individual. Some of my friends don't believe that, but it is true. I just want to share a few things with you. Some of you have already mentioned this, and I'll try to stick to the notes, although many of you from Stonegate Fellowship are thinking, what? He's going to stick to the notes, and thank you for being here as well. We are here because of foundations. We're here because of foundations that have been laid before us. Many people, as I've traveled the country and traveled the world, will find out about Stonegate Fellowship, and they'll say, how did you build that church? And I'll remind them that the first statement they just made is wrong. I didn't build that church. Long before I arrived, back in the 80s, there was a man named Stan Cromwell, who, now that he's dead and gone, nobody can get on to him, so I need the police department to not listen to what I'm about to say. As he would go out to Northwest Midland and he would jump fences, and he would walk around on empty pastures, and he would pray that God would do something at Northwest Midland. That God would start a new church out there. And then as years went by, and people like Jim Yates and Mark Dingler and others from First Baptist Church decided we should probably do something on the other side of town. Maybe we should try to build a church. And this was back in the days when I don't think too many people were thinking about anything big in Midland, other than it becoming big and empty. And so they began to think about this idea of starting a new church. And then when the economy was in the tank in the late 90s, and when I moved here, oil was $9 a barrel. They said, let's go start a church. And I got here, and all I had to do was just shepherd a group of about 50 families. All I had to do was get up on the stage and preach some messages and tell them, go be who you are. Understand who you are and the opportunity you have. I didn't build a church. I stood on the shoulders of people decades before me who made it possible for me to be a part of something. And the fact of the matter is, as Lori just mentioned it and as Jack alluded to, all of us are here because of the shoulders of others that we stand on and the foundations they've built. We are at a unique time. Foundations have been built to bring us to this time. The foundations have been built of the airport. You shouldn't know this about me. I was one of the first flights that arrived at the new airport, Mayor, and thank you for that. They're already playing my song. And I was actually, when we came here, when we were invited to come here, and I see my friend Andy Deck, who's here, who asked me if I was interested in starting a church in West Texas, and I'd never heard of Midland, Odessa. It's not my hometown. I didn't even know about Friday Night Lights. And they flew me in here in the dark. And so, in that old airport. So thank you for having a vision to do that. For the mayors and city councils that brought us a loop that nobody drove on 15 years ago, but now we wish we had another loop. Nobody's complaining about the current loop. Who brought us ballparks that I hear people complain about, but always we go to the games at those ballparks and enjoy those ballparks and enjoy the games we play in them. To see far ahead of themselves. People like Wes Perry, who we're not going to run around and see too many things, except we're all going to turn on faucets and be thankful for a mayor like Wes Perry who said, we have to fix this water issue. And for Mayor Jerry Morales and the City Council, and I want to read what I just simply wrote, we have a current foundation of readiness to move into the future, because when our city was being driven to the infrastructure brink, and I'm not sure everybody realizes what it was like from about 2015 on, maybe 2014, when this place was being run over, when all of a sudden the house you complain about your taxes on now wasn't worth anything, now you're so thankful it's worth something, but you're still complaining about all the taxes you're paying. But they still took the bull by the horns and said, we're going to make this thing happen. Do you understand the condition this city was about to be in if it hadn't been for a mayor and a city council who were ready to pay the price that, quite frankly, the next mayor and the city council don't have to pay because of their leadership? I don't want you to stand up because my grandson's still asleep. But I do want you to applaud the city council under the leadership of Mayor Morales that has brought us to a place to hand over to a new mayor and city council to say, take us to the next step. Would you applaud them for it? He's still asleep, so you can go ahead. During the campaign, and I was thankful for the campaign we had, Jenny, thank you for stepping up to the plate and running. Would you applaud Jenny Cudd? I remember when we were in the middle of the campaign, and it was such an exciting campaign for people around the city, and everybody wanted to do a debate. Everybody wanted to do a debate. And I remember one evening, Jenny and Jerry and I got together underneath the staircase somewhere, and I said, hey, can we just agree to stop accepting invitations to debates unless we're going to answer the questions for each other? And so it was a tremendous time, a tremendous run. But as I wrote in my notes, and as I campaigned, we campaigned about a time for a new paradigm. And really, the reality of that new paradigm is what I just explained to you. This region has been reinventing itself in a new paradigm forever. It's always having to adjust. We're always having to fight when people say we can't do something. We're always having to take another step that people say we can't take. Because this is West Texas. Nobody in North Carolina, where there's water flowing freely and there's mountains in the distance, is saying, I think I'll move to the desolate desert. Until they get here and see a sunrise and a sunset and meet the people who live here and find out the opportunity that can happen here. And they begin to buy into this paradigm. We have to keep in mind that our design, my Stonegate Fellowship friends might hear something coming, but our design and our calling and our destiny as a community, it has changed right around us. We're no longer in the middle of nowhere, but instead we stand as the center of everywhere. Make sure you heard that. We no longer live in the middle of nowhere, but we indeed stand as the center of everywhere. As one leader told me several months ago, he said, if the Permian Basin shuts down, the world changes. And we all know that, and if you don't know that, as J. Ross said a minute ago, you've been living under a rock. Indeed, we're world famous for everything we do below the ground. And we are beginning to turn a corner to become world famous for what we do above ground. But what's going to happen is we're going to have to change the way we think about who we are. I'm thankful for a city council and a mayor before us and mayors and city councils before them that have seen that even before the residents have seen that. But now it's time for us to begin to see that and begin to accept that vision of who we are and what we can be. And I've seen it happen. I've seen people begin to see God and people do something different. And as I wrote in the article Sunday, these values I hold dear are values I see in you. It's a love of God and a love of one another. A people who will bear one another's burdens. We saw that in the tragedy that occurred this past summer. And as a people who will take risks. Who else takes a risk to move out to West Texas? Who else takes a risk to poke holes in the ground that you still can't see what's underneath there? And something great happens. And we stand on the shoulders of men like George Mitchell, who took 20 years to figure out what they could do so we could do what we do. It's time for us to step into our new paradigm. But it's going to require us to continue to partner together. And I'm going to use an old Southern Baptist word, I'm going to tarry here for just a minute. We must forge and improve upon partnerships between people, institutions, and organizations that already exist. Partnerships we never thought of yet, but we must be willing to try. Partnerships that begin right here in Midland that drive the region as we lead the state and country as the producer of the food, fuel, and fiber. Let me dispel another myth, by the way. As soon as the election was over, my phone started ringing literally from coast to coast. And I'm doing this hopefully for the benefit of the outgoing mayor and council members and those before them and for the MDC. My phone began ringing, and you know what it started ringing about? Don't answer because you have no idea. It's just a rhetorical question. It started ringing for people asking me to talk to them about the international spaceport that we have in Midland. They said, "Do you realize you have one of the greatest gifts in this country with that spaceport?" And I'm telling you right now, I've listened to people make fun of the city council and the MDC and the mayor. I've listened to people poke fun of it. I've listened to people write articles about it. I've listened to them say, "Look at that waste of money." The same people that have lost money in business who think they're greatly successful all of a sudden look at something the city's done, and because it was one mistake, they say it was the worst thing. But it's people who look ahead and saw something different. We literally have people around the world saying, "You have no idea what you have in the international spaceport." I say that because it's in that kind of lineage and that kind of heritage that we must continue to build partnerships when we are the center and the epicenter of what's happening in the world. Partnerships committed to creative solutions that lead to win-win outcomes, that lead to synergy, that lead to partnerships where not one party loses and another party wins, but we find new solutions we could have never dreamt of before. We're only going to make progress in historic partnerships and these ongoing paradigm shifts if we reject an inherited and an acceptable pessimism. Again, I will, as my old preachers used to say, "Tarry here, my body." We must reject old, established pessimism that we oftentimes carry around. The pessimism that acts like, because there's a pothole here in Midland, apparently there's not any potholes in Dallas and Fort Worth and any other place in the world. But the very things we complain about here are the things we seem to put up with somewhere else because we forget we're growing faster than those cities. And we must begin to choose to find solutions and answers rather than complain about our current situations. How many of you have complained about waiting on a stoplight more than 2 times? It's called growth. It's called growth. We complain about crowds. We complain about things that are happening without backing up for just a minute and realizing you are at the epicenter, as Vice President Pence said, of a renaissance in the oil and gas industry. You are at the epicenter of it, and we weren't ready for it 5 years ago. You should be thankful that sometimes it just flat sucks to live around here. Because the fact of the matter is, that's who we've been destined to become. I know your house costs a lot of money, but what would the alternative be? Think about the things we say about where we live because we've accepted a pessimism about who we are instead of an optimism about where we can go. Choose to release. Please listen to this carefully. Stuart, get this quote. Choose to release old offenses and grudges and renew collaborative efforts toward growth and change. I'm tired of hearing people tell me that somebody hurt your feelings yesterday, 10 years ago, or 20 years ago because you stepped up to try to help something. Quite frankly, who cares? It's time to move forward and bury the hatchet. I don't care if you didn't like what the school district did, or what the city did, or what the county did, or what he said to you, or she said to you. Grow up, get past it, and let's go. I'm going to get my Trump on here in a minute. I don't have that kind of language. As Kevin Dawson has been teaching us in his blog, it's time to start asking why not here instead of not in my backyard. I mean, people talk about how we should get at Topgolf. Is that as big as you're going to think? You're going to hit a ball into a net and then you're going to go home drunk? We can do better than that. We will choose every challenge to to be our responsible opportunity for generations to come. If we didn't have challenges that drove us crazy, it would mean our future is dead. You do realize that challenge has been woven into creation. I don't know if you remember, when you go back to the Garden of Eden, you know who the one was that planted the tree of temptation? God. Because he said you only get better through the test. We only get better through the trial. We only get better when we look at each other and what in the world are we going to do? We only get better in that moment. We must look at I think we think in our eyes, in our minds, we think, well, one day we're going to stop having challenges here in the Permian Basin. Ladies and gentlemen, the day we stop having challenges means we're going backwards. And things are not working. We will disagree, but we will do so without calling into question each other's desire for what is good and right, and without impugning one another's character and integrity on social media or even face-to-face. We are not Washington, D.C. or Austin. We are West Texas. We believe in our God-given values and in the value of every individual. We will be the people who leave this room. And when people are willing to impugn the integrity of police officers or firefighters or the school district, just because you disagree, you be the one who says, not here. We will disagree, but we will make our way to agreement, and we will refuse to impugn people's integrity just because they disagree. So we can be the model of what it's like to be West Texas. In this paradigm shift that's ours. Paradigm shifts here are not new. It's who we are. And partnerships is who we are. And finally, this progress we make together. I've said some things on the campaign trail, and I've watched people roll their eyes and all those different things. And by the way, a lot of you come up to me and said, "Are you willing for people to be mad at you?" And I said, every Sunday, that was something I did. I mean, if half the room didn't leave hacked off, I didn't tell the truth. Right, Pastor? Exactly right. You know, called to make people comfortable, were you? By the way, I think we would have all rather sat down and let your wife sing the national anthem than any of us sing that national anthem. Was that not right? Like, everybody be quiet. Together, what if we did everything necessary to become a top 10 school district in the state of Texas and the top 25% in the country? And the reason I put that is because the mayor has nothing to do with education. But every one of us do. Stop complaining about it and get engaged in it. It's not going to change. It's not going to change until we as a people stop complaining about it and start engaging in it. And by the way, people of faith, it's time you start refusing to talk about the evils of public education and you start getting engaged in the righteousness of public education as we move forward. A destination city. I know Russell doesn't think I believe this because of some of our recent conversations. But a destination city for health and wellness, rather than a starting point for an eastward drive down I-10 or I-20 for better health care. I'm sick and tired of hearing all the people who have cancer having to go somewhere else when they should just be able to stay right here. Because we should be as famous above ground in health care as we are below ground for what comes out of it. Together, what if we become the destination for police and fire officers, for personnel, for teachers and healthcare providers? That they realize there's something out here happening. We work towards infrastructure and housing and planning and develop that become the pattern of other cities and counties to follow. What if all of a sudden, because of the shoulders we stand on of the people who've gone before us, we begin to build upon that, and instead of us in Midland going to some other city to see, we find other cities coming to Midland to say, how did you do that? What if that became who we are? And if you're rolling your eyes and thinking that's just a political speech, then get in the game. And stop waiting to see if something can happen and be a part of the change. Maybe we become a destination and not a tour of duty. And finally, and some of you who were there July 10th when we announced this candidacy, remember when I said these following words. You say this is impossible. Well, let me remind you of the following words. I love this quote. Some of you will remember it. I wasn't alive when it was spoken. Some of you might have been there. I wish I had the accent to go with it. It is not surprising that some would have us stay where we are. But this state, this country was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them, but rather conquered by those who move forward. Those words were spoken by John F. Kennedy on September 12, 1962 at Rice University on the football field. Might have been the only victory ever on that football field. But he laid out a mission to go to the moon. He never saw it, as you well know. But just this past summer, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of that vision and that legacy. What vision and legacy do you believe in? We have generations before us who have said we can do more. We don't have to go to the moon, but the question remains for us. Will we aim so high and so far that when generations to come look back, they'll be thankful for the vision we had, the values we shared, the victories we planned and fought for, in bringing to bear a new Permian reality. And you know the phrase already because I've used it too much. It's famous for what we do above ground because of the opportunity that was ours below the ground. I'm here today because of so many of you in here. I'm here today by no chance because a friend that I met in Oklahoma moved to Texas and called me in Louisville and said, "You want to come to West Texas?" I'm here because mayors before me have set this precedent. I'm here because Jerry Morales and the previous council, and I'm not saying this, let me pause. Some of you think I always just saying that to be nice. That's really not in my nature. Who said that's true? Did you say that? They have done what they were supposed to do. They laid a foundation. Shame on us if we don't build on that foundation. Shame on us if we don't take the foundation they have given us. And there goes a concrete truck right as I'm talking about foundation. No neutral moments. They have laid a foundation for us as we move forward. But I would fail this morning if I didn't pause and thank the people who got me here as well. And that is my wife that you just saw, who is to blame for me being here. Because I handed her a list of reasons why I wouldn't run for mayor, and she handed it right back to me, and she said, "Yes, you will." And so I almost said thankful. I'm thankful for that, baby. I'm thankful for my powerhouse little mother who's sitting right down here, and I won't look at her because I'll start crying. But as a single mom who worked several jobs, I'd go clean offices with her at night. And this is, when you talk about me not being nice, I got it from her. Because I'd come home from football practice, and usually football practice, and then I'd have to go to work, and then I'd come home, and I'd talk about how much I hurt. And she'd never say, "Oh, baby, let me do that." She'd say, "If it hurts too much, then quit. Don't complain about it. And do something about it." And she passed that heritage on to us. And my sister who is here, and my family, and my in-laws, and my daughter, and my son-in-law, and their family, my grandson, and others who are not here, who texted me this morning as my grandchildren texted me and said, "Go Boomer." That's my granddad's name. Go Boomer. None of us would be here. None of us. If it wasn't for the foundations of those who have gone before us. All of us. I know everybody made fun of Hillary Clinton because she said it takes a village. We're all Republicans, so we couldn't agree with what she said. But now that she's gone, just realize it does. The Bible calls it a community, calls it a body. We stand here today because of a foundation before us. We are the most important cities in the world. I know you think New York is. No, it's not. Just fly there and walk around a little bit and you'll realize it's not. I know you think Washington, D.C. is the most important city in the world. I know some of you think Austin and Lubbock are the most important places in the world, but they haven't won games lately. But I'm just going to tell you, the most important city in the world is the one that's driving the world economy, and it's right here. And as we step into this new paradigm made possible to us because of those who have run the race well before us, if we partner in risky ways, we'll make progress into a future that generations of our children, my little grandson someday might live here. And he'll ride around and he'll see plaques on things and he'll see a city and he'll listen to us tell stories about how that used to be a dirt road. But it's the epicenter of the world they live in now. And I look forward to being a part of that with you. Thank you for being here. God bless you. You are dismissed.